Man, I love that song. Welcome, Denver After Dark on a Sunday night. It is 9 p.m. Um, you know, I was asked by a couple people that they said, "Den, you do this Denver After Dark thing, and we watch it, and I'm on YouTube, and I thank you. My YouTube, subscriptions are going up. I have all kinds of, Substacks just exploded, and people say, well, Denver, you should be interviewing so many people right now, right? I mean, so many people, and I do. I mean, you guys know I could get probably, Hunter Biden on the show if I wanted to. I can call anybody in Congress. I even have former Republican friends who would come on here. I think I would have sitting congressmen right now that were Republicans that would come on, Democrats that would come on, people running for governor in Virginia would come on, people running for governor in New Jersey would come on. And people say, well, Denver, why don't you do that, man? I know you got this other show, Truth in the Barrel with Amy, and we do a lot of interviews and such, but here's why I want to tell everybody that. I don't want to do that crap. I just don't. I was thinking about it, who's going to teach me about what's going on with data or facts? Now, I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but I mean, the same people keep interviewing each other on Substack, and I like some of them. It's great. And some people want to interview me. That's great. But the thing is, I don't want this self-licking ice cream cone of me just interviewing other people on Substack or YouTube and trying to leverage each of our viewerships to order to grow it because trying to monetize. And I never want to monetize this. And that's why last week when I was talking about subscribing or tuning into this, everybody that knows me, I don't need the money from this. This is not how I monetize my life. I think, it was military, it was work, it was running my own companies, it's manufacturing through distilleries, it's having an AI company now, right? I've made my money that way because I want to do something that actually gives back. It is service. And again, I'm not trying to break my arm by patting my own back, but just wanted to tell everybody here, the reason I asked to spread the word is I just want to have this facts-based, data-based relationship with you. I don't need a bunch of people coming on here telling me things that I already know. What I want to do is tell stories and then relate that to what's happening. And that's why I'm doing this. And if it goes off and it's great, wow, that's amazing. If it's a big wet fart, then that's what it is, right? That's what we do. So, we have an incredible topic tonight. And I know that everybody's heard the term pedos before, but, and all these weird things that are going out there with this Epstein stuff. Well, thank you, Catherine. I do not try to monetize social media. And by the way, if you see my donations on Substack, it's from my incredible producer, right, who busts his butt and who's became a very close friend of mine who actually helps with this show, who's behind the scenes right now, making sure I don't screw up, right? So that is Doug, who has become a very dear friend. So tonight I have a story of when I was 12 years old. Now I do have pictures of when I was 12, but they're so hideous that I have to have one of when I'm 14. So I want people to know what I look like, what a beautiful boy I was, a young man at 14. There I am looking at a Heather Thomas pinup who I've actually talked to on Twitter, actually had correspondence with, which is so weird, right? Because that was me at 14 years old. This is about 2 years after the story I'm about to tell you. And before I was a state champion powerlifter, as you can tell by the 14-inch guns, maybe 13-inch guns that are bulging from that incredible 80s shirt that you see there, everybody, and the incredible yellow paint job. That was my friend's house where we started to lift weights. And by the way, the only record we had to lift weights to, this is how poor we were, was Simon and Garfunkel. Yeah, I was bench pressing over bridge over troubled water, baby. So anyway, when I was in 7th grade at Stonewall Jackson Middle School, I had really bad hair. As you could see, I mean, I just didn't get great haircuts. I don't know if our family didn't believe in haircuts, I don't know. Sometimes I just wake up and I think my hair had been cut by some kind of weird, I don't know, haircut sprite, at night. So anyway, I just had this tousled hair. But anyway, I just love this girl. And I remember her name was Monica Thompson, right? And 7th grade, and I'm 12 going to 13. So I had just started, trying to trying to gain weight. And it is criminal. There's not more people in this live stream, but Substack's going to be going crazy. I can tell you that. And because we do have the YouTube up and, a lot of times it does come after. So I do think it's going to be okay. So anyhow, It's going to get big, guys. I mean, and I'm going to cut the story and I'll get going. I do know, right, that I'm on TV a lot and people watch me and all that kind of stuff. And I do find it interesting that there's some people out there that might have 2 million followers, like Benny Johnson, who's a loon, far right loon. But even people that are in the middle or on the left, have tens of thousands of followers. And I try to watch it, and I would rather stick a pencil into my eye through my frontal lobe, because they're not saying anything that every other pundit says. And I promise you, I'm never that, because I actually read things like the Mueller report, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Like, how can you make the Mueller report exciting? I can make the Mueller report exciting. I'm going to make the Mueller report exciting. So here we go, because it starts with a story of when I'm 12. So anyway, why do I remember this so vividly? Is because it's the first time I asked Monica out, and she said no. She never said yes, by the way. So anyhow, so I asked, Monica out, and she's like, no, because her older sister thought I was ugly, which is probably true. And actually she told it to my face. So it wasn't like she thought I was ugly. She's like, it looked like your face caught on fire and somebody tried to put it out with a rake. So anyway, I'm feeling really sad that day. So I go I have to go to the bathroom, right? And you guys know, between classes, you got to go to the bathroom. It's the only time you can go to your locker. If you have to, you got to get something out. God, I even remember I actually used my own birthday for a combination, because I was so smart at the time, very security conscious, or like Pete Hegseth. So anyway, so I go into the bathroom, right? And guess who comes in? The world-class bully, Marty. Now, I'm not going to use his real name, because actually he's still alive, but I don't want to paint anybody, disparately, just because they were held back a grade. Anyway, so I'm in 7th grade and he's in 8th grade. So, and Annie's older, right? So here I am, hoping I get hair anywhere. And this guy already has almost a full beard, right? And he walks into the bathroom with 5 other cats, right? They're also dressed in the 80s love, machine type of clothes that we had back then. I think even one, remember the zippered collar, where you could actually zip the collar up and then you could zip it and lay it over to the side? Yeah, that's the kind of stuff these boys wore, because they were badasses, right? And my clothes really came from the Salvation Army down the street, not really a lie, or from the incredible Kmart, which was right down the road, right? Which was great, right? Because next to the Kmart was a little sub place where for about $2.50 I could get a sub and chips. Anyway, I mean, I got too far now. Well, I knew Manassas, Virginia at the time. So I'm in the bathroom, and here comes Marty with his freaking hooligans, and there's about 5 of them. And I think this is really where I knew, as a young kid, I ran a lot. I was bullied, and I learned to sort of stand up for myself. And I'd been in a few scraps, so I wasn't exactly, awful, right, as far as being a fraidy cat. But as soon as Marty came in the room and I'm there, already unzipped in front of the urinal, I figured I was in for a problem, and a little bit scared, right? And I should have been, because Marty didn't really like me for some reason. Now, I don't know why, even to this day, but I will tell you that 3 years later, me and him had it out the Friendly's parking lot of Manassas, and I got the better of him, believe it or not, because by that time I learned I better lift weights and I better fight dirty if I'm going to win, because I'll never be tall. Like, I'm 5'7". I know I look like such big stature to you guys there, but if I came up to you, I'd look like a sexy Danny DeVito. So anyway, I'm in the bathroom. So here these 4 guys come up, and actually, while I'm pretending to still go to the bathroom, and you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm still pretending to go to the bathroom, they're like shoving me in the back. You guys know that move, right? I learned that move because I would do that 3 years later when I was a bully. I'm kidding. As a joke, by the way. So anyway, I'm being pushed to the back, right? I'm like, what do I do in this situation? What do I do? Because Marty was awful. These guys were worse. They were the followers. They were ones who wanted to impress Marty. Now, Marty was about to maybe start shaving, but he was over there laughing while they're like pushing me in the back. And I'm like, I'm about to get my butt kicked with my fly down. So, they start talking a little bit. So, I had my wits about me to get, situated and sorted. So I'm just like trying to be quiet, sort of head down, trying to get out of there. So one of Marty's goons, he comes over and he shoves me against the wall. Now there's, again, guys, I'm telling you now, the lightest one of them outweighed me by 25, 30 pounds. I mean, I was 7th grade, maybe 5'5", 5'4", maybe 125 pounds. I'm not kidding. I was not a big guy. I was super fast. I ran track in 7th grade. I even played middle school football. But, I had to use, my speed and wits. I was a good athlete. But, man, these guys, they'd have rung my bell. There was no way out. Like, I wouldn't even got a good lick in. They were taller, better reach. If I started fighting, it had just been face smashed, nose bleeding, eye black, ribs caved in, right? Me crawling out of the 7th grade bathroom, screaming in pain, hair tousled. Monica, Monica, help me. It was the first time I really had to talk my way out. Hey, I'm smiling. Man, I don't want any trouble. You guys, man, I got to get to class. I don't want to be late to class. I don't want any, please, I don't want to have to go. The one thing you never want to say is I'm going to go tell the teachers, by the way. You don't want to do that. These 4 guys wouldn't have it. I was going to get my ass kicked. They were awful. And Marty was in the back laughing because those were his boys. And his boys were so much worse than him. Birds of a feather flock together. You're like, well, Den, how did you get out of it? How'd you get out of this fight? And if I tell you it's a little bit easier than you think, it's you play possum a little bit. They're tassel, they're good, right? But you wait till somebody comes in the bathroom door. And when somebody comes in the bathroom door, it gets their attention just a little bit. The one thing was I was fast, I was slippery, I was quick. I played a lot of football. And it was boom, boom. It was a couple moves. Their attention's off. They try to grab me. I get away. I get flipped. I get slacked, hit the wall, door, out into the hall. I'm gone, right? Gone. And I know these guys are coming after me later. And the 4 guys did. Man, I could never get away from these suckers. I was always dodging and weaving and bobbing, which is the reason I actually started lifting weights and started learning how to fight. 7th grade, Stonewall Jackson High School. But I remember these 4 guys. They were always worse than Marty. Meaner, uglier, dirtier, fight anybody, violent. And that's why I want to talk about George Nader today. George Nader, who with Eric Prince went to the Seychelles to meet with Russians, financial individuals and Russians, for the Trump campaign in 2017. Now, George Nader, and you're like, Denver, how in the hell does Marty link to all this? And even Doug, I bet my producer's going, what in the, how is this a link, right? Well, here's the link. George Nader, 2016, 2017. So George Nader actually went to the Seychelles with Eric Prince to talk to, and this is, let me make sure I get my names all right, Kirill Dmitriev. And as soon as I saw the George Nader story on Blue Sky, Doug sent it to me, is because I know the names. George Nader stuck in my head because I actually read the Mueller report. Now I'm like, holy shit, what is George Nader coming up for, right? George Nader was a player, wasn't a huge player, but definitely a player in this whole Russian thing happening in 2016, 2017, right? Was meeting with Kirill because Kirill was the CEO and a Russian financier of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, right? There was money involved here. So it's something that Mueller actually looked at. And you guys can go look at the Mueller report. You can look this cat up. But what's incredible about the Blue Sky post I saw is this guy's a pedo. That's right. Got 10 years, right? 10 years. This guy that you're seeing right now got 10 years in prison in a child sex case with having material on his computer with people as low as young as 8 years old. 8 years old. And I'm like, hey, do birds of a feather flock together? And why does it seem like the people around the person they're following is so much worse than the person they're following? And it made me think of the little Stalin theory back at the University of Virginia, where there was a socialist came up with a theory who hated communists, believe it or not. As you guys know, there's a lot of subtlety there. There really is. But hated the communists and hated the people under Stalin because they said they were worse than Stalin. Go look up the little Stalin theory. You're like, my God, Demmer, it's almost like you're learned, or something like that. Yeah, I did learn how to get out of a bathroom, so I did get my ass kicked. So you have all this happening right now, and I'm looking at George Nader. My mind's exploding. Like, my goodness, how much pedophilia is around Trump? Sexual abuse, sexual assault. And do birds of a feather flock together? And as we're talking about this, as we're having this discussion between all of us, my question is, Where is everyone? I know there's so much shit flooding the zone right now. I know that's the Bannon way. I know that I've talked about this before. But when you have journalists or mainstream journalists who don't understand the implications of the cascading effects of awful and evil and immorality, and this fear to use the word evil, because anybody who's a child trafficker, who engages in child pornography, who goes after innocent children, they're evil. That is the very definition of evil. It's okay to use it. It's okay for you to use that word. A lot of people worried. I don't know if it's some, I don't know. Is it an intellectual thing? Is it where people are afraid to use that term? Are we afraid that using that term makes us sound like the very people we're fighting against, which sometimes are far right evangelicals who don't seem to have any idea of where evil and good actually lie? Because there's no way you can be a Christian and support Donald Trump, right? You can't. That's like Jeffrey Dahmer for vegetarians, you know? You just can't. It's just not, it's not something that, you can do. It's just, you're not going to do it. So I was thinking about George Nader. 10 years. And the reason I was drawn to this because Blue Sky, and I've been trying to validate it all day, but it doesn't really change the fact of this, is that it looks like he was let out of jail right around when Pam Bondi was sworn in. Now I'm trying to validate that February, but even if not, which I think it might be true, even if that didn't happen, what does it say about a president that is surrounded by the worst dregs in society? You think about Pete Hegseth, Roger Stone, Matt Gaetz, Epstein himself, Diddy, Kanye, Nick Fuentes, the little Nazi, Michael Cohen, who was a criminal. I know now he's trying to redeem himself, but not at the time. He was a scumbag, right? Alan Weisselberg, accountant for the Trump administration. Everyone with Trump University, right? Manafort, Mike Flynn, right? George Papadopoulos, which is all over the Mueller report also. Rick Gates. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. As you guys know, there's a list of, if you look at, even people in the GOP, I mean, I know there's a lot of awful child sex traffickers and stuff from every party up there, but it seems like this GOP thing of people that are absolute hypocrites and sort of evil to the core are the ones trying to push morality when they themselves, right, have just these awful, turbulent black souls that really lead them to what they are. And this is this narcissistic, sociopathic push to power. I think that's why, when you're talking about George Naders of the world, you get to this point that you're like, at what point do we have people willing just to say that maybe this POTUS, who's already been found liable of sexual abuse, is a felon who specifically said he just likes to grab women by the nethers, is actually our president? And today I had people texting me, I just got back from London and people are like, this going crazy in the world. What are you going to do, Den? Right. I've even had people tell me they're going to move out of the country. I'm just asking you guys, don't move out of the country yet. I think there's a fight coming. Fight could be intellectual, there's so much to do here. Our country's not in great shape. You guys like, Den, that's the understatement of the year. I mean, next week, I think we should sell Where's George Nader t-shirts. George Nader should be all over the news. I mean, where's he at? And if he's not in the country anymore, which was suggested by that post, how are we going to talk to him about what's happening with the Epstein case or Russia, the Obamagate stuff? Yeah, because Pam Bondi's still going after Obama, now Hillary Clinton. I mean, what's next? They're going to reopen a 9/11 inquiry to say it was an inside job. I mean, before you know it, we're going to have the oversight committee looking at flat earth theories or UFO abductions. Oh, that already happened. Shit. I forget about all that. So anyway, I wanted to let you guys know about George Nader because I think you should look him up. I mean, you can Google him. I think the Mueller report's a really good place to start. You can actually look in the back if you have the actual Mueller report. You actually can look in the back at the names, cross-reference back. You can see all my notes from when I read the Mueller report 3 years ago. Is that crazy? I still got all my notes and my footnotes. Man, sort of nuts, right? Go to page 255 in the Mueller report if you really want to have a fun read. But it's pretty incredible to me that, we're talking about, again, another child predator, a pedophile that's related to this whole thing. And then it goes back to Epstein, right, and what's going on there. And then you start looking at George Nader, right, who was part of the Russia, right, influence operations in 2016 and 2017, disappearing, who's also a child rapist. And now you start to get to this point where you're like, my God, Den, is there any truth out there except for that being shaped by the worst of us? And that's why I wanted to come to you all tonight. And that's why I had that thing at the beginning, right, where I wanted to say, I have to bring to you stuff that you know where we're at, and it's a data and facts based. Cross-reference in the Mueller report. You can actually look it up in criminal records. You can identify this individual. Look at how long that he's been doing this. Look at the people that he actually met with, which is in the Seychelles, right? That's where they went. And then cross-reference that to the timeline of when Don Jr. met with the lawyers, the Russians, right? You can start looking at the timelines and start comparing that because it's all validated. It's all in data. I don't know how Tulsi Gabbard's going to get away with this, right? And my thing is, if it's everybody out there, if you're listening to me, you need to ask, where's George Nader? Where's George Nader? Where's George Nader? Because Tulsi Gabbard should know about George Nader, but I bet you $1 million she never read the Mueller report. Frickin', we are being led by the dumbest and most ill-conceived, ignorant, bad-intentioned administration in the history of the United States. The only one that maybe even rivals it is the Nixon administration. That's it. In our current lifetimes. I wasn't born. I think I was born in 70. So, Nixon was around before then. I'm not that old. Anyway, if you got any questions, you want to pop them up. It's been 22 minutes. As you know, I don't like to take too much of your time on a Sunday night. We want to get to it. We want to hit it, and we want to just bring it. And that's what we did. Well, I don't know. Josiah, that's I just don't know about that. I don't think Israel really does that, to be honest, buddy. He might have fled, but I think that pedophiles will flee anywhere. I don't think that's just Israel. And I think we got to be really careful. And Josiah, it's good to see you, but we got to be really careful, right, about who we're identifying as pedophile shelters, because that can look a little anti-Semitic. As far as when you're saying, how do I feel safe right now? Thank you for the question, Dustin. Listen, it's so funny you would ask that question, Dustin, because you must be in my head, because today I was just talking to my wife about something we sort of pushed down that we just reacted to, was the attempt that happened on me back in 2020. We just looked at actually the days that it happened. And how do I know? Because the Capitol Police told us to get our carry permit. This was in 2020, and our 5-year renewal for our carry permit came up last week. Can you believe that? So that's what we got, right? So my concealed carry permit, my wife's like, Den, we got to get that renewed. And immediately I said, man, we got that just about a month after that attempt. And everybody's like, wait a minute, Den. You had an attempt on your life? Yep. Very bizarre one where even the Capitol Police are like, that's a new one. So I was actually in Congress. I had left my congressional vehicle here. Now, I don't know if you guys know this. On the congressional vehicles, we have a congressional plate. Mine said 5 for Virginia's 5th District. So I had a Virginia plate with the number 5 on there. So I left it here because it needed an oil change, guys. I'm just telling you. And I just took another vehicle and went up to Congress because it was my time to actually go up there and do some voting. It was 2020. This was well after the gay wedding that I officiated, but this is well after I'd started going after QAnon. So you're talking about, I was already in the throes of people hating my guts, right? I was working with the George Soros globalists because I didn't like QAnon. And, I was pretty much hated for that. And also, I had voted to keep pre-existing conditions as a Republican. And you guys know that's almost as worse as officiating a same-sex wedding in Republican circles, let me tell you. So I get a phone call, and it's my wife, and she's not happy because the mechanics at the place that my pregnant daughter drove our vehicle said that somebody had taken the lug nuts off our tires and replaced the caps. So the tires were free spinning. And my daughter had noticed this a bit when she was driving, a little bit of a shake. And we thought maybe it needed a front alignment. It was a pretty new truck, though. So I guess that's what I'm telling everybody, right? That's a bizarre way for somebody to come after you. But I don't know, it's had thousands of death threats. I mean, a death threat's a death threat. But I would like to tell everybody out there, I'm a public figure. I mean, I own distilleries. I mean, you can come watch me do dishes if you want. I love being there on Saturdays sometimes just to see everybody and talk to all the great people that come through. Have a distillery in Pennsylvania. I don't hide because I know it's impossible to hide because I know data very well. I mean, if I disappear, it's going to take me about 3 to 4 years. I know how to do it, right? But I'm not going to do that because I'm not running away from any of these sons of bitches. And that's really how I'm wired. And I think it goes back to Marty in that bathroom, right? You start to learn. Sometimes maybe you slip out and run, sometimes you don't. And with that, it's an incredible transition to Midas Sue's question about if I'm going to run again, which is what I was getting to, actually. So, my gosh, you guys know me pretty well. So this anger has forced me into this position where I think I might have to run again. Somebody said, you have to be a narcissist or have some kind of ego to ever think that you can make a change, right? That you need to run. And, I sound so disingenuous to say it. I would rather set myself on fire than run again, right? I'd rather self-immolate. I'd rather, go somewhere. Denver, would you want to run? And just pour gas over me and flick, right? That's it. No. But I mean, I think there comes a time where all of us, have to make a decision. What are we going to do? Even though I have my companies and I have all these things that are happening right now, I think there comes a time where I think I might have to run again. And, I was talking to my wife, what do I do? Do I sell the distilleries? Do we do all that? Cause she's a master distiller, right? Do we sell one? How do I free that up? I have a new AI company with investors, right? That's why I was in London. That's why I've been all around the world, right? I'm supposed to go back to Ukraine in the next few months, right? I got all this happening right now, or back to Poland, maybe Moldova. I'm supposed to go to Finland, right? I got a lot going on. I'm like, you know what? I'm doing great stuff for the country right now, right? I'm building companies, I'm employing people, I'm doing my thing. But I think there does come a time I have to run. I think I'm getting to that point where I have to make that decision pretty soon. I don't think I would go back to Congress. I think it'd be an executive position like governor, which I was asked to do this year. I was asked to run for Congress again. What am I going to do as one is 435? It would be a national story. If I ran a Democrat in my district I won before as a Republican or ran as an independent. But I think I'm to the point I just want to scrap, I want to fight. And this is what I trained for my whole life, head to head against stupidity. Great question from Julie from London. From Liverpool. Oh, I love it. Hi, Julianne. It is nearly incomprehensible. I want to read this. Sorry, Doug. It is nearly incomprehensible, right, that there's all these nonces over here, which it made me laugh pretty hard. I didn't see the last part of the question, though, because I was stuck on nonces. How can it be that the lowest have become the rulers? It's incredible. I think a lot of it has to do, and I've told people like this, is that good people are not really attracted that much to run for office. If you think about what I said about self-immolating rather than go on a campaign again. But the other thing too is that there's a massive block. If you're looking at the way that it's gerrymandered here in the United States, we have a very difficult time getting away from that. So if you have a district, it's called PVI, the Political Voting Index. If you have this thing where Republicans have a 10% margin in a district, it's called an R plus 10, right? Or you even have, sometimes Democrat districts that are D plus 10 or more. It really does attract the craziest because you have the committees in those certain areas that are really, a lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of them are mouth-breathing smooth brains, right? They're the ones leading these type of committees that are really pushing the vote. And conspiracy theories and ignorance have bloomed like a metastasizing virus across the entire United States. As you get more and more gerrymandering and more specific in these weird little enclaves, right, that have echo chambered themselves off, where they only have one direct line of communication, right, from one channel, whether it's the Ben Shapiro's or Candace Owens or Charlie Kirk's or Benny Johnson's, right, all these individuals, or Fox News or Newsmax, right, they're completely locked into this thing in this alternate reality where they're voting against these feelings that they're fighting against evil rather than the fact that they're being played by the ignorant. I hope that helped with the question, as I'm going forward. So everybody, this has been a heck of a night already. I don't like to go much over 30 minutes. We're at 29:55. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for another Denver After Dark on a Sunday night. And remember, There are bullies out there, and birds of a feather flock together. And you don't get the George Naders being attracted to the Donald Trump campaign and all the criminals, the felons, the rapists, and the pedophiles, unless those birds of a feather like to flock together. And I think that's what you have right now. It's okay to use the word evil. It's okay to use that word. And deviant, it's okay to use that word because, again, like I said, I think we have the most deviant administration we've ever had in our history. And I think that deviancy and that fantasy is just beginning to really gin up. And I think you're going to see massive disinformation pushed into our ecosystem over the next few weeks to months, and very violent rhetoric as they try to cover for the Epstein files and try to go back after Obama and Clinton with really bizarre charges that have already been actually litigated for years. And even the Republicans said that there was Russian collusion there or a Russian attempt to actually interfere in our elections in 2016. Thank you, everybody. This is Denver After Dark. It's going to get worse before it gets worse, as you know, but however, we're going to be here on the flip, and it's going to be up to us to bring America back. Thank you guys so much. Join me next Sunday night, but I'll be doing Denver After Darks all week. See y'all and catch you next time.